Welcome, everyone. I am delighted to be kicking off the first session of this June's Navigate. I'm Sam Greenhalgh. I'm the Chief Revenue Officer here at Zencargo. And as Lucy rightly mentioned earlier, the retail industry is currently grappling with challenges of managing their inventory levels. And in recent times, the headlines surrounding inflation, consumer demand, and inventory levels have become hot topics in the supply chain landscape. So I'm really delighted to be joined by Sigrún and by Okyay. Sigrún is the Chief Product Officer at AGR, and Okyay is the VP of Supply Chain at Spreetail, and they're going to be giving us their insights on inventory challenges that they've seen in the market and some predictions on when the restocking period will happen, which I know there's lots to talk about on every conversation that I'm having right now. So welcome both. Delighted to have you both on with me. It would be great if you could introduce yourself to our listeners.
Thank you. So happy to be here. I'm Sigrún. As Sam said, I'm the Chief Product Officer here at AGR. For 25 years, AGR has helped wholesalers, distributors, and retailers across Europe and North America turn their supply chain into a competitive advantage through our inventory optimization solutions, where we strive to eliminate the waste within the supply chain. I've been with the business for almost 10 years now. Started out in a customer-facing role, working with our customers, but soon moved into product development because I was always seeing opportunities on how we could do things better. So super excited to be here and learn from you.
Great. So welcome, everybody. This is Okyay. I'm from Spreetail, VP Supply Chain Europe. So I'm coming from more than 25 years of logistics and supply chain experience, beginning with the typical 3PL conventional organizations in regional and global, and then done business around the globe from China to Europe and US. And in my last 5 years, I'm barely focused on the digital part of the logistics and helping scale-ups and startups in the Europe landscape to go-to-market strategies and moving their businesses into Europe. And in the last 2 years, I was heavily focused on the e-commerce part of it, fulfillment part of it. Before Spreetail, I was the CEO of Germany for a European scale-up, which giving 3PL fulfillment services. And then recently in the Spreetail SVP Supply Chain Europe. So yeah, thanks for everybody for joining.
Great. Well, it sounds like we're in for a great session. I'd encourage everyone as we're flowing through to add questions as we go to the channel so that we'll address them when we get to the end of the talk. So first off, I'd like to kick off with you, Sigrún, to just at the broader level. It would be great if you could give us some insights from your customer base at AGR based on the experiences. Based on how they've experienced these challenges that we've just kind of discussed at the beginning.
Definitely. Yeah, as we all know, inflation levels have been on the rise, and this upward trend has had a significant impact on our customers. And one of the key effects of inflation is the volatility it introduces in consumer demand, because people have less disposable income to spend. And our customers have had to adapt their strategies to address these challenges. And we have observed a shift from more of a lean supply chains to more agile ones. Rather than aiming for bulk discounts, retailers are now ordering more frequently to adjust the fluctuating demand and mitigate risks associated with excess inventory. This shift has brought the concepts of inventory holding cost and cash-to-cash cycles to the forefront, and our customers have recognized the importance of optimizing these factors.
And from those different the different customer base you look at, there's obviously different industries, and we're seeing certainly from our side, different trends within different industries. So it'd be good to know from your customer base, are you experiencing any different things based on the industry that your customers are in?
Yeah, so definitely, it's very different, and it's all about knowing your products and knowing your customers. And in sectors where people have more choice in what they spend their money on, like luxury goods, the effect of inflation and on how demand changes becomes more noticeable. consumers have less cash to spend on recreational activities and non-essential purchases. So the unpredictability becomes even more. As a result, retailers in this segment have recognized the need for tight planning and agility in their restocking processes. On the other hand, sectors with fast-moving consumer goods, such as grocery retail, have experienced relatively less volatility in demand. But however, it also depends on the product groups, how sensitive customers are to these pricing changes.
And Okyay, from your experience, I would imagine in the period of COVID, the demand for e-com and products as a service for convenience was kind of really high, but that has meant it's been volatile for inventory over the last few years. How has that impacted you as a business, and how have you changed the way that you're thinking about inventory during this period?
Sure. In the COVID period, as everybody knows, we were sitting at homes, and then there's nothing to do, and everybody was trying to order something, and especially on the driven by hobby, home garden, outdoor lifestyle things, because you are not traveling, you're not spending that money, and that's significantly increased the demand for those type of products. And in our company, especially in the US business, which are main focus, we have seen more than between 20 to 30% of increase in the demands in the volumes in a sudden period, like in 6 to 8 months, 30% up. So it has happened also in the other regular brick and mortar like Walmarts and other targets of the world. And then everybody thought that this will just go on like that, and then they order whatever they can as we do it, and then we end up with super higher stocks that the 30% demand or over uptake will go on. But when it's finished up, and then last year, and then we suddenly see that everybody just caught up with enormous inventory at hand, and then other challenges begin. The demand drop, and then the money spent just go on to other places like travel or others and open up, and then so we've seen that demand just drop, and then we, of course, the overstocking has become a super issue. And then the price cuts and all the challenges began through the e-commerce retailers, especially, and also for the brick and mortar, just to clean up the inventory. And then that took a long time. I mean, for our case, it's even more than 8 to 10 months of cleanup period for the overstocking inventory. And then since the demand has been stabilized, now we're thinking more carefully on what to bring, when to bring, because there were different challenges in the COVID times, as we have experienced more than $20,000 per container race, which is enormous. And then even you paid, you are waiting just out of the Los Angeles port for how many days the containers to take in. But now this challenge has been resolved, the container rates dropped, but then another problem came up, like Sigrún said, is the inflation, and then the recession environment, and demand literally too slow. And then I think that brings the companies like us to become much more careful, much more agile and dynamic planning of which products sell, in which prices to sell, and when to make this product available.
Mm-hmm.
Which it then poses the big question, which is how do you then balance maintaining the service levels that people expect in terms of convenience and quick delivery, but with also making sure that you don't have this huge excess of inventory in order to fulfill that customer demand? How are you dealing with that?
Yeah, currently we have two sides of the game. Since we are e-commerce brand accelerators, we're a little bit different model. We're buying the products from the brands directly. We're sourcing globally from China, EU, US. And then we are operating in a specific categories like home garden, do-it-yourself categories, and maybe outdoor lifestyle. So in this range, we're trying to select the products more carefully than the other, because compared to the COVID, not everybody ordering everything now. So they're only demand specific or much more season specific orderings. So we bring the inventory, trying to bring it right on time. Like, for example, summer period, everybody just goes out and then try to make outdoor lifestyle or pools and spas, which we're very good at. And then we bring the inventory literally 2 months ago and then put into marketplaces and sell it and try to deplete the inventory with many promotions, and then just not to carry the inventory probably more than 180 days. There are typical KPIs that we follow, especially not to caught up with the inventory, because once the season is gone, then we need to wait all the 12 months back into next summer to sell this inventory. So that's why there are a couple of things that we play: summer peak and winter peak, different products, different timelines, and better. There's also some regular products which are prevailing, especially selling on the marketplaces. And what we're trying to do is we're trying to put our bets on not too much on the Far East productions, trying to select some nearshoring places like Eastern Europe, Turkey, which are the prices are favorable now, and even with domestic producers, manufacturers, so that we can bring them in same day with the trucks. I mean, like the feeding up the inventory. So that's why we set ourselves a target of inventory turn of 3 or less, just to meet the demand and then maintain the position in the company.
Mm-hmm.
And has that led to you having more frequent orders at a smaller scale, more spread across the supply chain rather than single source?
Exactly. That was not the case. I mean, before COVID, everybody was trying to ramp up the inventory. The minimum order quantities were 5 to 10 containers in the US piece, but now we're literally ordering single containers coming and then repeatedly, like every month, because there are a lot of spaces in the ships now. The demand is dropped, the prices are dropped. It's a matter of dynamic planning now, and then placing your orders, and also in the cash management, like the working capital. If you tie up too much working capital, then if something goes wrong, and then you're just hurt by the financial impacts. But in this way, we could have managed the balance between the more frequent cycles and more diversified type of supply chains, not only betting on the containers, but some maybe trucking and some partial loads, and also the container combinations.
And the kind of last question I'll dive into on that, with the smaller orders, more global supply chain, more frequent, it maybe demands a little bit more of your freight forwarder than what maybe was previously required when using larger quantities and more infrequent. So what do you think the role of a freight forwarder or supply chain partner be in helping support your commercial side of the business and making sure you're maintaining that right inventory level?
Sure. We have a strong preference on choosing digital forwarders in this marketplace, especially in the UK and Europe, due to main reason that they can provide, they have much more streamlined processes, like the order management and the flawless documentation, and everything is online, and then placing orders, and then have the chance of getting the real-time visibility on the background, seeing where's my container, and then getting regular status updates. Because since we are managing more agile supply chains, we have the necessity of getting more frequent data from the freight forwarder, and also our expectation is just to manage the exceptions by interacting with us. I mean, I know that when something sounds digital is only humanless, but actually you don't eliminate the human. It's the processes are streamlined, but there's always a human. I mean, we write an email and get a response, what's going on, and then try to find the solutions, or even sometimes creative solutions, how we can do it, because there are some products and inventory that are needed urgently or maybe going out of stock. Then in this place, the freight forwarding with the full-fledged, like the customs clearance and on carriage and everything, needs to play a major role to let it happen. Sometimes within 3-4 days, you lose the sales because of because we are playing in the e-commerce. We are not in the brick mortar. We are fighting for buybacks. If we are not there right on the time and right place, we're just losing it.
Yeah, really, really interesting. And Sigrún, from your perspective, what does that mean in terms of to what extent that customers, maybe retail even from their business model, need to look at their S&OP process, or the sales and operational planning process, or their sales and operational executional process to reduce that inventory risk, given that we're in constant change now with the different economic environment?
Yeah, I mean, this was really interesting. to have real-time data to be able to execute quickly is crucial. But I would say that one crucial aspect in the S&OP and SME processes is to identify the categories in your business with higher demand volatility. It's important to understand that different types of products can respond differently. But by understanding these dynamics, retailers can really align their pricing strategies, ensuring that they are not holding excessive inventory of price-sensitive items. But something that is also on top of mind, and what you can do is to go to alternative sources of supply. It can play a significant role in mitigating cost increases and reducing risk. During these times of cost of living crisis, retailers can consider offering more affordable brands or sourcing products from lower cost suppliers. This strategy really helps the customer and addresses consumer needs while minimizing the financial risk. So yeah, and just to reiterate, really consider shorter planning cycles to enhance your agility and to be able to respond quickly.
And from that shorter ordering cycles, how could real-time demand data help teams and specifically AGR's customers make better predictions around demand?
Yeah, by continuously monitoring ongoing demand trends, teams can adjust their replenishment strategies based on actual demand, dynamically adapting order quantities, reorder points, and lead times. But furthermore, real-time demand data fosters better collaboration across different departments within an organization and also up the supply chain. By sharing, sharing is caring, and by sharing and aligning based on the latest demand insights, teams can ensure a cohesive and synchronized approach to demand planning and also to production and marketing. So this collaborative effort allows for more accurate decision making and helps your suppliers as well to be ready when you need their supplies.
Okay, from your perspective, obviously being from the customer side in this environment, how much do you get buy-in from, or how much has the collaboration changed internally between it being separate functions for demand and supply? Is there more cohesiveness around the decisions making?
Yeah, I think that's a very good point, Sigrún mentioning. We are still in the evolving phase, although we're an established company operating since 2000 in the US. We're still seeing some collaboration defects or gaps between teams, and then sometimes due to the demand of the business, one of the teams who are ordering might go further, without talking with the supply chain operational teams, and then that's what we call exactly S&OP, or different terms, VSSI in our terms, which the planning, it should be go in line with the capacities that we're managing, because we have a very tight commitments, especially not only on the inbound, but also for outbound pieces. Like if you're running a much more higher orders or just get demand rather than out of our capacity, then the sales channels that we're working, like Amazon or other places, because we are very much dependent on Prime, and the Prime has very strict metrics. And then if you're just miss the OTS or OTDs of the world, and then they just suspend your Prime, and then you lose sales. It's a vicious circle, and then that's why the planning of the inbound go in line with the outbound on a day-by-day basis. So we very much care about those relation, but it's still evolving. It's not there yet in a proper manner. I think within 2 years' time we'll be coming to a stage of learning more, because we're just started in the UK. It's only 1 year. We're operational in Germany now, in the Europe. We're just learning, and then the company needs to also digest this learning phase, how the demand evolves, especially in a very difficult environment like consumers, and you don't know how they react. For example, if their temperature is going beyond 30 degrees, then immense pool sales, which is more than expected, and then you suddenly go out of stock, or you cannot fulfill the orders at the same day properly, and then they just review you in a badly in the marketplaces. So we need to close this and make it proper job so that it's hand in hand.
Yeah, exactly. And one other point to add, we have seen a huge increase in usage of our purchase planning functionality that's AGR's way to share how much we foresee to purchase up the supply chain to suppliers, and people are using that functionality much more than before, and powerful information sharing in that direction and even integrations can really also help your suppliers be ready and see more quicker changes in patterns. Yeah.
Yeah, it's great to see the different. Well, what I've seen definitely is that supply chain has elevated since the COVID times, just in the conversations, and then the collaboration with the CFO and other teams in demand and buying and merch are definitely evolving for the better.
Definitely.
So the big question for this session was restocking, the when, the why, and the how. Sigrún, it'd just be good as we come into the final bit of the session, looking at the big picture. Retailers are all wondering right now when demand is going to return at scale. From your data, from the trends that you're seeing, and from obviously from the stuff that we discussed at the beginning with inflation, is it what do you see, or is it too early to make a prediction?
Yeah, it is, but current outlook for inflation suggests a projected increase to 5% by the end of this year. But we are seeing the projections are saying that we will reach the target of 2% by end of 2024. So as the inflation pressures subside, we can anticipate a greater level of demand stability, enabling supply chains to transition to leaner strategies. However, like you say, is it too early to tell? It's important to acknowledge that we have experienced a series of crises, whether it's COVID, the Suez Canal, Ukraine, and everything that's going on now. These events highlight the need for the processes to be agile, and also for robust supply side technology that enhances overall resilience and to prepare us for future crises. And we see that that is really happening, and people are more companies are more aware of how critical these functions are.
And Okyay, from your side, is there any early signs of when a restocking will commence, or have you got a different view?
I think I'm a little bit in the middle. The restocking will not come back before mid-24, is for sure, because we need to visualize the interest rates and then coming down, and the inflation imposed by it needs to be stabilized in the country. I call it stabilized because the fear of the people, I mean, it's not being 2 or 4. If it stays 4, so they know that it's staying 4, but not increasing. So they can make a long-term planning. And then, especially in the countries like UK and then Europe, the people doesn't know yet, I mean, what the next winter bringing them because of the war and then the energy prices. Now I'm seeing that they're started to decreasing, but will this opportunistic approach of the energy provider will still continue and they rise the prices? We don't know yet. I mean, I think when they become stable, and then when people go out of the winter next year, then there'll be much more hope with the reduced inflation, so that they will look their take away home monies and at hand, and then be more enthusiastic about spending money, especially in the retail, because now they're just holding back. They just only making the proper, even they don't plan their vacations. I mean, what I'm seeing in the UK, I mean, so they're cautious. So given that information, I think as a company, we have also seen that every crisis brings their own opportunities. I mean, I can not only say that the demand is low, so we're just not doing well, but if there's a crisis in the winter and then cost of living increase, and then due to energy, people converting themselves to another resources, and then we sold unexpectedly a lot of alternative energy resource products in the last winter, and we would be selling more if we would have brought some more inventory. That's why we started to measuring called unmet demand. I mean, because every company is just measuring out of stock, but we also measure the unmet demand because of the opportunistic products or acquisition products that might be selling well, which we didn't foresee, and then we can brought into our game plan. I think e-commerce retailer game plan is a little bit different than brick and mortar, because brick and mortars are stick to their brands and stick to their product. They have their fashion seasons, but we are much more flexible. And then if something doesn't work out, we can just flexibly buy in other products and then still making our business. It's a matter of, how the forecast and how you read the environment. I think, but definitely not before the mid of 24.
Really interested on that point on the unmet demand KPI, right? Which the next question I was going to ask for both in a quick one sentence was to get what would you advise retailers to be thinking about to optimize their inventory strategies for the remainder of this year and for 2024? I think we touched on a couple of areas, Okyay, on the smaller order quantities, more agile purchasing, and the idea of having that unmet demand KPI is really interesting. But what would Sigrún, I'll ask you first. One sentence, what would be your advice to retailers for managing their inventories?
Yeah, I would just like to iterate the goal of higher interest rates is specifically aimed to reduce the demand for goods and services. So until we see the inflation pressure go down, we should focus on short cycle inventory levels and optimizing the cash flow. So.
Great. Same for you, Okyay, in one sentence.
Yeah, and what I will advise will be a little bit more specific to the e-commerce retailer or having some online businesses. I think the critical two KPIs will be the percentage of inventory holding more than 180 days is a critical factor. They need to watch out this. If something going really up, and then they just think about it, and then the inventory turn cycles. They need to keep it somewhere below 4 or up to 3, because otherwise they will tie up too much working capital and finance. And then with this unprecedented environment or volatile amount, it will be hurting the companies. Yeah.
Brilliant. So that was honestly great session. I was taking notes as we was going through. I think we've got a few minutes, as I went slightly over as I'm a bad host, for some questions. So if there's anyone that's got any questions for myself, Sigrún, or Okyay that they'd like to add, that'd be great. I've got one here. It's not directed at anyone specifically, but does the situation in the US differ to that of Europe? Okyay, why don't you answer that one first?
In our company perspective, since we're operating in both companies, we don't see too much differences. The same issues also exist in the US in different scale, and still overstock and still inflation, even higher inflation than here, especially on the brick and mortar sides like Walmarts and Targets. And then I think that the challenges are hitting both sides. There's no favorability.
Same for you, Sigrún. Have you seen it from your customer base any different between the US and Europe?
No, not really. I agree. The inflations are different and different drivers behind inflation, but it's the same challenges, and you really need to stay on top of your product categories. And not seeing much big difference.
And from a peak season perspective, obviously in retail, especially in certain categories, we work in seasons. But do you think there will be a peak season this year, or do you think they will remain relatively flat?
We are anticipating normal seasonal patterns, but with potentially lower peaks in non-essential goods. But time will only tell, and provide us with a clearer picture.
And Okyay, from your side, is there anything that you're expecting from a peak, or are you predicting flat?
We are predicting 2 peaks, but not not super strong as the other peaks, but still strong peaks. Especially driven by the weather conditions, especially for the countries like UK or Europe. In the summer peak, there will be selling a lot of even non-essential items like the outdoor lifestyle things and summer gardens. But in the winter peak, there will be a usual Black Friday driven and also the Christmas driven businesses. And we saw that last year, people still spending and they are still lightening their homes. They are still buying Christmas trees. So it will go on. This is our expectation.
Brilliant. And then the last question that we've got in here, which was, what are the best KPIs we should always track when managing inventory and inbound?
I think it's coming to me. What I will be in line with the inventories, as I told you, 180 days, less than 180 days, a percentage in inventory turn, 2 KPIs. But on the inbound, the transit times, beginning from the PO cut, which we call purchase order, and then the shortening the time according to your sales forecasts. I mean, so you don't overshoot your, because nowadays, that's the reality. Everybody knows that even the demand is low. There's a lot of transshipments going on, and the vessels are not coming on time. Even that they call it direct shipment, they are not direct anymore. And you just spent half of your journey instead of 29 days, and then you end up with 40 days of transit time. And the other challenges in the ports are like strikes and everything. You should calculate and build it into your, if you're sourcing really remote and from China or US.
Brilliant. Thanks, Okyay. And Sigrún, from when you're speaking to customers, is there any specific KPIs that you focus on?
I think I'm just gonna echo what he said, but inventory turnover, obviously, and then lead time volatility and lead time analysis is really what we are focusing on at the moment. Because even though it's easier to get supplies, we are also seeing suppliers with volatile lead times that can really hit you. So, yeah.
Brilliant. Well, those are the questions that we had. Thanks everyone for listening to our session, and thank you again, Sigrún and Okyay, for sharing your insight.